The urinary system. The urinary system consists of the kidneys and bladder plus the urinary vessels, the ureters and urethra that connect them to the outside world. Blood enters the kidney via the renal artery. It passes through smaller vessels to the nephrons for filtering. Clean filtered blood leaves the kidney via the renal vein. Urine is collected in the renal pelvis and passes into the ureters, where it flows to the bladder for storage prior to urination through the urethra. Blood entering the kidneys passes through microscopically small filtering units called nephrons. The blood first enters a knot of capillaries, tiny blood vessels, called a glomerulus. Here, waste materials and excess fluid are filtered out of the blood. The filtered fluid passes through loop tubules where essential fluids and substances are reabsorbed into the blood, while the waste leaves the kidneys as urine. So this is the picture of the nephron. And we have here the urinary system. So the cortex of the kidney is filled with 1.5 million nephrons. These are the filtering units. The adrenal gland sits on top of the kidney. Then we have the renal pelvis that collects newly filtered urine. This is the right renal artery. And then we have the ureter carrying the urine to the bladder, and the urine stored in the bladder. The urethra carries urine during urination. So this is the nephron. Filtered blood will pass through the renal vein and unfiltered blood from the renal artery. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to pathology of yin-yang imbalance. Let's discuss treatment principles. For the treatment principles, an understanding of the pathology of imbalances between yin and yang is crucial to determine the correct treatment principle and method. The treatment principle is intimately related not only to the imbalance of yin yang, but also to the hot cold and the full empty nature of the pathology. Put simply, there are only four basic treatment principles. In excess of yang, there's clear heat. In deficiency of yang, you can tonify yang. In excess of yin, expel cold. In deficiency of yin, we nourish yin. In excess of yang and excess of yin, the emphasis is on clearing and expelling pathogenic factors, while in deficiency of yang and deficiency of yin, the emphasis is on tonifying and nourishing the body's qi. It should be noted here that expel cold in excess of yin should be interpreted in a broad sense, including resolving dampness and phlegm, which are also an excess of yin. For treatment principles, the excess of yang, to clear heat, the deficiency of yang, tonify yang, excess of yin is to expel cold, the deficiency of yin is to nourish yin, the empty cold, expel cold, tonify and warm yang, and the empty heat, clear heat and nourish yin. Moreover, the yin-yang imbalance determines also the method of treatment in acupuncture as follows. In excess of yang, clear heat and do not use moxa. In deficiency of yang, tonify yang and use moxa. In excess of yin, expel cold and use moxa. In deficiency of yin, nourish yin and do not use moxa. The excess of yang is to clear heat and do not use moxa. The deficiency of yang is tonify yang and use moxa. The excess of yin, expel cold and use moxa. Deficiency of yin, nourish yin and do not use moxa. So far, we have discussed the treatment principle in full heat, the excess of yang, and full cold, the excess of yin. But what of empty heat and empty cold? In empty heat, one must simultaneously nourish yin and clear heat and use no moxa. In empty cold, use one must simultaneously tonify and warm yang and expel cold with moxa. Thank you for your attention.
Now let's have Food Young Min Stomach Meridian, Stomach 33, Yin Shur, Yin Market. Stomach 33, Yin Shur, Yin Market. On the anterior thigh, on the line connecting the axis with the superolateral angle of the patella, 3 Shun proximal to the patella along the lateral border of the rectus femoris muscle. Stomach 33 occurs midway between stomach 32 and the superolateral patella. In Chinese medicine, climatic conditions of cold and damp, both yin-type pathogenic factors, are responsible for swelling and pain in the joint. These yin pathogenic factors constitute a yin market. For example, the descriptive term for stomach 33. Stomach 33, yin shirt, yin market, yin tripod, activates the channel, disperse fullness and cold, swelling of the knee, cold and pain in the lower back connecting to the knee. At stomach 33, qi and blood are accumulated and dispersed like goods at the marketplace. This idea of a place of exchange and distribution echoes the role of the stomach in receiving and in sending out the 5 grains. The stomach meridian is a yang channel or a yin aspect of the body. Here, we are reminded of these two qualities as the stomach meridian enters the region of the lower leg. Indications: cold and pain or atrophy in the thigh or knee, abdominal distension, and cold. Here, blood and qi accumulate, which can then be distributed as in a market to wherever they are required, particularly helpful for pain and swelling in the knee or pain in the lower back. Clinical relevance: a number of trigger points in the quadriceps group cause problems in the cranial thigh. Muscles affected by needling stomach 33 depends on the depth and direction of needle insertion. Indications and potential points combinations: for knee pain, swelling, restriction in range of motion, stomach 33, palpate for myofascial trigger point contributors in the vastus lateralis muscle. Also, evaluate stomach 34 for tenderness to palpation. Other trigger points in the region, and consider adding stomach 35, stomach 36, spleen 9, spleen 10, GB34 for anterior knee pain. Posterior knee pain, stomach 33, stomach 34, and relevant kidney bladder points. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to lung patterns. Let's discuss wind heat invading the lung. This concept, the wind heat pathogen invading the Weiqi level of the lung system. This analysis pattern is mainly caused by the exterior wind heat pathogen, which invades the Weiqi level of the lung system. The key symptoms would be cough and symptoms of exterior wind heat patterns. The clinical manifestations would be cough with sticky yellow sputum, stuffy nose with thick yellow nasal discharge, fever with slight aversion to wind cold, slight thirst or sore throat. The front of the tongue is red with a thin yellow coating and a floating and rapid pulse. Here's the analysis of wind heat invading the lung. When the wind heat pathogen invades the lung, the lung fails to descend, so lung qi counterflows upward, there will be cough. If wind heat pathogens turns fluids into phlegm, there will be yellow and sticky sputum. If wind heat invades upwards to the throat, there would be sore throat. If it affects the nose orifice and fluids are scorched by the heat pathogen, there would be stuffy nose with thick discharge. If wind heat pathogen invades the Wei Qi, the Wei Qi is invaded and fights against the pathogen, there would be fever. If the Wei Qi is depressed and stagnated so it fails to warm the skin, there would be aversion to cold. Also, if the red front of the tongue, thin yellow coating, a floating and rapid pulse are manifestations of wind heat invading the lungs syndrome. Wind heat invading the lung, etiology, the exposure to climatic wind and heat, possible weak defensive weight heat. The signs and symptoms would be cough, fever, aversion to cold, scorching sore throat, stuffed nose with snivel, cough with yellow mucus, headache, body aches, slight sweating, thirst, swollen tonsils, slight aversion to cold. The pulse would be floating and rapid. The tongue would be red with red sides or tip. The coating may be yellow or yellowish white thin. The treatment principle is to release the exterior and expel wind heat. The acupuncture treatment to be used are lung 10, which clears lung heat, Li11 releases the exterior and clears heat, lung 11 clears lung heat, bladder 12 for cupping, which expels wind, gallbladder 20, which expels exterior wind, lung 5 clears phlegm, Li4 releases the exterior and clears heat, stomach 44 descends the stomach chi, do 14 clears heat, do 16 expels exterior wind, Sanjiao 5 expels wind and clears heat. It is also advisable to do needle with drainage for headache, add do 20, Tai Yang, and SI3. For spontaneous sweating, add Li4 and kidney 7. For nasal congestion without snivel, add Li20 and extra point Yin Tang. For scorching sore throat, prick lung 11 to bleed. For cough with thick yellow phlegm, add bladder 13, Li4, and lung 7. As a relevant advice, when there is an acute invasion of exogenous pathogenic qi in the exterior, it is advisable to consume beverages that are cooling and spicy, such as mint, chamomile, chrysanthemum, or elderflower, to open the exterior and expel wind heat. Fasting is also advisable. Fasting temporarily means that qi will not be used to transform food and can therefore be used to combat the invading pathogenic qi. Furthermore, some sources are also of the opinion that the downward movement of food and qi in the stomach created by eating food can draw exogenous pathogenic qi inwards from the surface. Similarly, the sour flavor should be avoided due to its astringent and centripetal dynamic. Vitamin C, lemon, and other things that are very sour should not be consumed during an invasion of exogenous pathogenic cold, as they will draw the pathogenic cold inwards whilst closing the pores in the skin, thereby preventing the cold from being expelled again. This also means that antibiotics are not recommended at this stage as they are cold and drain downward. Thank you for your attention.
Let's have diagnosis by Qi and blood. Let's have blood syndromes. Blood syndromes are those arising when blood or fluids are insufficient or move abnormally. The most common types are those due to blood insufficiency, blood stasis, heat in the blood, and cold in the blood. In blood insufficiency, syndromes of blood insufficiency results when there is insufficiency of blood, so that blood is unable to nourish the visceral organs, meridians, and tissues. Pathology. Blood insufficiency can result from many conditions, including a variety of slow or rapid bleeding. Chronic brooding, fatigue, and prolonged illness can damage yin blood. Dysfunction of the spleen and stomach may impair the body's ability to extract nutrients from foods and drinks. Hence, failure to nourish blood stasis in the interior may cause a blockage and prevent the generation of new blood. In all these conditions, insufficient blood fails to provide nourishment to the Zangpo organs and the rest of the body. Clinical manifestation. The typical syndrome of blood insufficiency includes a pallid or sallow complexion, lips, tongue, and nails, dizziness with blurred visions, palpitations of the heart with insomnia, numbness of the hands and feet, roughness of the skin, and a thread-like and forceless pulse. In women, the menses are reduced or light in color, delayed or absent. Second is the blood stasis. This results from obstruction of blood flow or from an extravasation of blood. Pathology. Blood stasis usually result from Qi stagnation, Qi deficiency, or concealing of blood by cold. When Qi becomes stagnant, blood circulation is impeded. When Qi is deficient, blood circulation loses its motive force. When cold congeals blood circulation becomes difficult. Alternately, extravasated blood may accumulate in the body and form a hematoma, which can obstruct the movement of both Qi and blood. In both cases, there are typical symptoms of blood stasis such as pain, swelling, bleeding, and cyanosis of the lips and tongue. Clinical manifestations. The typical syndrome of blood stasis includes stabbing pain in fixated location aggravated by pressure and worse at night, hard and fixed abdominal mass, subcutaneous hematoma or purpura, cyanosis of the complexion and lips and scaly skin. In addition, women often have amenorrhea. The tongue is cyanotic and may be speckled with purpura or petechiae. The pulse is thread-like and impeded. Thank you for your attention.
Subjective data, 2 of 4. The history of present illness should include any pertinent recent test results and test dates. For example, if a patient presents with chest pain but indicates that he had a negative stress test 2 weeks ago, these data should be incorporated into the history of present illness, as they have a direct bearing on the patient's chief complaint. If the same patient presents for evaluation of hematuria, then a recent stress test result should be incorporated into the past medical history. Test results should be summarized, providing other healthcare workers, physicians, nurses, and other practitioners with an overview of results and indications. The history of present illness should not be a repetition of the formal diagnostic reports. Dates also help other healthcare workers understand previous occurrences, but it is important to summarize the information in the history of present illness and not just list the dates in a bulleted format. Thus, the history of present illness should be a concisely written paragraph or paragraphs that describes the patient's signs and symptoms and the course of events up until the present encounter. A guiding rule of thumb is to consider the record to cost $1 a word. Hence, it is important to be concise, but also to be accurate and document all pertinent data. The key for the novice provider is to determine what is pertinent information and what is superficial information. Past medical history. Once the history of present illness is concisely documented, describe the patient's past medical history, or the PMI. The past medical history should include significant information about previous or current illnesses, hospitalizations, surgeries, injuries, immunizations, medications, and allergies. Also, document information about transfusions and any transfusion reactions, immunizations, and results of any screening examinations. When recording this information, it is important that dates or approximate dates are included in order to provide an accurate perspective of the patient's past history. For females, last menstrual period should be documented. Although the history of present illness is written in paragraph form, the past medical history is typically presented as bulleted information with appropriate dates included. If a pre-printed form is being used, it is important to add the appropriate dates and outcomes in addition to the finding itself. For example, if the patient has a history of hypertension and the pre-printed form has a selection for hypertension, not only should hypertension be checked, but it should indicate either the year it was diagnosed or the number of years the patient has had the condition and if the hypertension is well controlled. If the patient does not have allergies or if she or he is not taking any medications, it is important that the word none is listed beside the heading. This eliminates a question as to whether the clinician forgot to ask about allergies or medications. Thank you for your attention. Acupuncture for emergencies, heat stroke. Heat stroke is a condition caused by the body overheating. This usually happens because of exposure to high temperatures or physical activity in high temperatures for too long. There are a few stages of heat injury, and heat stroke is the most serious. It can happen if body temperature rises to 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius or higher. Heat stroke is most common in the summer months. Heat stroke needs emergency care. If it's not treated, heat stroke can quickly damage the brain, heart, kidneys, and muscles. This damage gets worse the longer treatment is delayed, which increases the risk of serious complications or death. Use acupuncture on DU26, Sichuan, and lung 11. Use acupuncture on PC6, Li4, and stomach 36. If there is a coma, use acupuncture on DU26 and DU25. Use acupuncture on the shoulder pain, 1 point. Use folk therapy. Bean soup, 10 grams soya bean, 10 gram black soya bean, and 10 grams mung bean. All are cooked in 300 ml water until the beans are soft and edible. Drink the soup and eat the beans. Everyone can drink this soup in hot summer. Pear plus crystal sugar. Chop the pear into pieces and grind the crystal sugar into powder. Eat both. Combine 5 to 8 plums and 2 teaspoons white sugar. Cook in water until the plums become soft. Drink the soup as a regular beverage. Note: move the person to a colder, fresh air environment. If there is a coma or shock, treat the conditions in the ways described for these conditions. Thank you for your attention. Etiology of fibromyalgia in Chinese medicine. The main etiological factors in fibromyalgia are as follows: invasion of external pathogenic factors, dampness, wind, cold, emotional stress, irregular diet, excessive physical work. Dampness is the most common external pathogenic factor in fibromyalgia. Dampness is an insidious pathogenic factor penetrating the body from the legs and flowing upwards. It derives from exposure to damp weather, living in a damp environment, sitting on damp grass, wearing a wet swimming costume, etc. Dampness settles into space between the skin and muscles, causing muscle ache and a feeling of heaviness of the limbs. It is the most common pathogenic factor in fibromyalgia and one that plays a major role in its pathology. Apart from causing muscle ache when settling into space between the skin and muscles, it may also settle in the head, causing dull headaches, facial pain, and a feeling of muzziness or fussiness of the head. Wind may invade the space between the skin and muscles and the muscles themselves. Wind causes contraction and pain. The characteristic of pain from wind is that it is wandering and moves from place to place from day to day. Please note that the ache from dampness also affects multiple sites, but it does not move from day to day as much as the pain from wind does. External cold invades the muscles and causes contraction and pain. The pain from cold is more intense than that from dampness or wind. It is more localized and not generalized or moving. It is not usually seen in fibromyalgia when the patient has ache in multiple sites. However, cold often combines with dampness. Emotional stress caused by anger, guilt, shame, fear, worry, sadness, or grief often leads initially to chi stagnation. Chi stagnation may affect the muscles, especially those of the neck and shoulders, and contributes to the muscle ache and pain of fibromyalgia. The excessive consumption of greasy foods, fried foods, and dairy foods may lead to dampness, which is the major pathogenic factor in fibromyalgia. Apart from the type of food eaten, irregular eating is also an important cause of dampness. Irregular eating means eating in a hurry, eating while working, eating late at night, skipping meals, etc. Excessive physical work weakens the spleen, liver, and kidneys. It if often leads to yang deficiency. In fibromyalgia, there is always an underlying deficiency primarily of the spleen and kidneys. Thank you for your attention.